What, did I auction Table Mountain? Or auction Johannesburg? I don't know. I never thought I would be nasty to people. And I think I can be nasty. There are spies that are infiltrated by us in his organization. That's the beginning of the process that has put me where I am today. It's an exaggeration. It is meant to enhance this narrative against Zuma. But I have been provoked and provoked to the last degree.
For years he has promised that he would one day reveal all the sordid details about his adversaries, inside and outside the ANC. Finally this week, the country held its collective breath as former President Jacob Zuma began to speak under oath.
Do you swear that the evidence you are going to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing else but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
And so he began with a decades-old conspiracy.
There has been a drive to remove me from the scene. A wish that I should disappear. And I will explain where it comes from and why perhaps it is important that I deal with in this commission.
At the heart of the conspiracy, the former president claims, is espionage.
There were three intelligence organizations that met, had a meeting to discuss me. And had a plan to begin in 1990 a process of character assassination of Zuma. Two of these organizations came from two different big countries, and one of them came from inside South Africa which was one of the structures under apartheid, which was part of this conspiracy. There are spies that are infiltrated by us in his organization. Whom we want to nurture, that they grow within the structures of the ANC to a point that at some point they will have to lead the ANC. Now, Zuma has information about these. We don't know when will he use his information to stop that process, that plan of theirs. And therefore, they took a decision that Zuma must be removed from decision-making structures of the ANC. And that's why the character assassination began. That's the beginning of the process that has put me where I am today.
Zuma says this elaborate, sustained cloak and dagger plot is the thread that runs through all the troubles he and his family have faced over the years. Even this very commission that he appointed on the orders of the public protector have all allegedly been preset milestones of this conspiracy.
This commission, according to those who are implementing things, must be the grave of Zuma. He must be buried here. And that's why whoever knew the Gupta family or they were friends, then they don't matter, but Zuma matters. You'll recall that the issue of Zuma must resign, the issue of the attempts in parliament of the vote of no confidence, which is fine because that is within the framework. In fact, even people remembered that we don't even have the way how to impeach a president. It's not let us do it. Because we must take this fellow out. I've listened to some of the people who have been accusing me coming here. One of them said that, it was Ngwako Ramatlhodi. When we were saying he must resign, he asked, what have I done? We know he has auctioned the country. What an exaggeration from a lawyer. He can't tell you auction what? Did I auction Table Mountain? Or auction Johannesburg? I don't know.
Ngwako Ramatlhodi wasn't the only one mentioned by name. While the allegation against him was direct, Zuma's claims against former SANDF chief and Zuma era minister Siphiwe Nyanda required a bit of decoding. Basically, he accuses him of having been an apartheid police collaborator.
When I talked about Ralph, who had organized an attack when he was to be confronted, because the reason why you had that attack, he had been arrested by the Swazi police and leaked information about the work they are doing in Swaziland. And then his commander, the commander of the group, and other members of the group were very agitated about this. Why did he give information to the Swazis? And they did something and ask somebody, when he comes out after arrest, somebody to hug him as they greet. That hug was important because it will be saying he's innocent. In other words, nobody's angry for him that he might be responsible for this. The information was, that hug was arranged by the police. And somebody who hugged him had been given instructions to do so. And that was General Siphiwe Nyanda.
The former president alleges that so badly do the dark forces want him gone. If prosecution, persecution, political machinations, and espionage weren't going to achieve it, poison and suicide bombers were considered viable options.
I have survived attempts to kill me. People looking to poison me or being instructed by their handlers to do so. Finally poisoned, a very dangerous poison.
Zuma's testimony appears to have triggered a political whirlwind and highlighted the fault lines within the governing ANC and its alliance.
I didn't hear what he said, but he's angry with me for some reason. And I'm ready, me and him, to go for a lie test before the commission. He's bloody lying. They would have locked me up in Angola already. We don't play games in the NC those days. We lock spies up. So if he knew I was a spy, he would have locked me up. But in any event, I don't want to really debate the issue. I just want to do the following. Me and him must go before the commission, and then we do a lie test. No, I'm repeating it. He did. He auctioned executive authority to the Guptas. No, I'm just happy there's no one handling me. I'm handling myself. He must prove who's handling me. He must tell us. He must tell the country who is handling me.
What we have then heard was a massive diversionary story from the real content of issues. And we have then said, even this question about allegations of spying, we felt there were irresponsible utterances, reckless, and not actually even belonging there. And we were quite shocked that a president who had presided over the ANC, who was deputy president of the country before, would have allowed these comrades to hold senior public office when they worked against the values of this democracy.
Well, it's a matter for the National Executive Committee. It's up to the NEC to want to discuss it or not. I don't know. I can't speak on behalf of a collective. Well, let's debate, let's wait, let's engage. I'm a member, I'm the Secretary General of the African National Congress. Yes, if you want this matter to be investigated, the ANC must do so. So that if people have to be cleared or whatever, it's going to be a difficult one, but why not? I'm not inclined to believe anything, but what I can tell you, in any revolution, there is counter-revolution. And spies or informers have been there during the years of struggle. As to whether these comrades were mentioned here were spies or informers, I don't know. That's what President Jacob Zuma said.
People bring their views outside and treat certain witnesses as sweethearts and others as accused.
The Commission has got no license to do whatever it wishes.
This commission attempts at all times to treat all those who appear before it with respect and courtesy, but will be firm where firmness is required.
How can the president be expected to remember meetings where he was not there? Phone calls that occurred years ago.
The legal team for the former president has no power to prescribe to the commission's legal team how to do their job.
Chair, this is,
Yes.
I must say, this is poor. I do think I need an adjournment with him.
Unlike a court process, the Commission is not meant to be adversarial. But this week, with former President Jacob Zuma center stage, there were many instances when that collegiality made way for heated arguments bordering on open hostility between his lawyers and the Commission's legal team.
It's the letter of the 7th of June. We tell your Mr. Pedler, or the attorney tells him, please, in terms of which rule are we coming? And of course, because he has adopted, or there's a position that this is not genuine, he tells us, he says, this is done in terms of no rules. And that's one part that is missing out there, is that we are told by a statute, a creature of statute, that they are calling a witness in terms of no rules. He says it's a courtesy. We write because we say, this is dangerous.
I'm not sure I understand the logic of that in any manner at all, Chair. If the former president's intention here today is to implicate certain parties under whatever clause of our terms of reference, then that is his prerogative. But to say it's unfair because he's been prevented from giving notice is simply illogical.
We are running a process, a truth-finding process. And if we do not run it fairly, all of us, we run the risk. I did not say he should have given people notice. The problem is this attitude exactly of this commission, is that people bring their views outside and treat certain witnesses as sweethearts and others as accused.
Much of the contention centered on the grievance by Zuma's legal team that he was being treated not as a commission witness placing his version of events on the table, but as an accused who was being cross-examined.
If the commission rules, for example, that this line of questioning is the correct line of questioning that must be adopted. It's no longer it's cross-examination. You're trying to prove that Mr. Zuma's private conversation were somehow relevant to his public interaction or his interaction with the Guptas in public. Give him an opportunity to then look at this with a view that is going to be cross-examined, and then he can prepare adequately for cross-examination.
We ask the questions. What are the questions that you're going to ask? And the reason why we ask the questions is simply because, say for example, Ms. Mento, before you, she told you she could not, the commission could not confirm that she has left Cape Town to Johannesburg. The commission could not confirm that she has left Johannesburg for Cape Town. The commission, the recollection of the Gupta's residence, the expert witness of the commission contradicted her recollection that she apparently does not seem to have appeared into the place. So I'm saying this because it's important we were asking these questions to say, are you really calling him to answer things that it was proved before the commission and proved before everybody who is following this proceeding that that witness there is no proof.
And so it went on, with Justice Zondo having to intervene from time to time, take adjournments and meet with legal teams in his chambers to try and keep Zuma's testimony moving.
Counsel for the former president have indicated that they do not wish to be seen as if they are obstructive by rising very often and raising objections whenever there might be something that they are concerned about. They have said that they wish Mr. Pretorius to be able to ask questions without having to look over his shoulders whether they are rising to object or not.
But the consensus reached on the rules of engagement just didn't seem to hold. And by Friday, Zuma and his lawyers wanted out.
I have a problem.
Yes.
I have a problem because I'm being made to go through the details that are the details of the officials, and expected to remember every other detail on the work that generally is done by the DGs and the officials. The questioning this morning, we have gone into those details. I have a problem because I'm not an officer or cabinet secretary, those who take minutes, etc. The manner in which I think I'm being asked questions on the details that I can't even remember properly because I was not working on these details. Now, naturally, this will have its own results. The results that will make the commission to take some conclusions. Now, I thought there are serious issues or policy issues that one could be bogged down to deal with. Now, if you take this document, either the DG or the Secretary for Cabinet or something, they would know everything because they worked on it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the purpose of me having to remember whether T's were I's were dotted and T's were crossed.
I think it is fair to say that as president, there would be certain things that you might not know because they would be dealt with by officials and other people, and that there would be certain things that you would you would be expected to know. I think that's fair comment. Where there may be difficulty, and I think we can have a look, and I did say earlier on, you are free to say, look, I don't know that, I wouldn't have known that, and I think Mr. Pretorius may, going forward, have to maybe apply his mind more in terms of what's important that you are likely to have known or to have dealt with, to the extent that maybe some of the questions might be questions that might not have fallen within what you would have known. But I think what he may be trying to do is to make sure that in the light of the allegations that Ms. Barbara Hogan has made, for example, that you interfered with the processes of the appointment of, for example, the CEO, Group CEO for Transnet. And she goes into details into her interactions with you on her version. It may be important for the Commission to understand, for example, when we go to that report that Mr. Pretorius took you through, to say, do you remember having received this report? Did you note some of these points that she made, for example, that the board had made a certain recommendation? Some of those may be important because when a decision has to be made as to whether what she says you said was actually said, or that whether you said it or not, it might be important to have that full picture. But at any time, feel free to say those kinds of details wouldn't have been part of what I would deal with. And I would simply say to Mr. Pretorius, as we go forward, do have a look in terms of what's important for purposes of Mr. Zuma in terms of what you are looking at. So in principle, I accept the point that there may be details that as president you wouldn't know. But I think it may be that Mr. Pretorius doesn't want a situation where he doesn't put certain things to you, only to find that later on they become relevant in terms of what exactly happened, and then you have not been given a chance. That's my thinking of what he is doing. But I think going forward, it may be that he might wish to bear your concern in mind as he goes forward.
No, I hear you, Chair. I hear you. My problem does not go away.
Chair, this is,
Yes.
I must say, this is poor. This witness, right, comes here, you have Annexure D, which tells you what the process is. This is no expert in those processes. You have it in Annexure D in your document, and you are told by the minister. I do not think it's fair to ask someone who was head of state to explain to you the process of selecting people when you have the document that tells you from the right person. I don't think it's fair to this witness. I would like to have an adjournment. I have a view that my client was brought in here under false pretenses, and now I need him to make up his mind whether he wants to be cross-examined, because it's clear, it's just been confirmed. He's being cross-examined. All I'm asking, Chair, I'm going to repeat the things I said to both you and Mr. Pretorius, but for now, because I advise my client to respect this process, come here, cooperate with it. I want him to consider that position, because I think I advised him in bona fide, but I do not think I was right. And I would like him to consider his position, because now it's clear to me he's being cross-examined on the version, not his version, on what people said. I do think I need an adjournment with him.
Okay. And what has been agreed is that there should be an opportunity for both the Commission's legal team and the former President's legal team to look at the concerns and see whether a way can be found in which they can be accommodated without the Commission's legal team compromising the job that they need to do in terms of the investigation.
And so on Wednesday, a day and a half was set aside for the two legal teams to seek consensus. By Friday, it actually seemed positions had become even more entrenched.
Chair, we're here today to tell you that we will take no further part in these proceedings. That's what we've come here to tell you. But let me go back to tell you why. You will recall that on Monday, I expressed my reservations that a commission, which is a creature of statute, which has set out ground rules, writes a letter on the 7th of April, I think, of June, to say we are calling your client in terms of no rules. We expressed our reservations because this commission, at all times, has to comply with its ground rules in order to secure, to protect its own integrity, but the integrity of witnesses. And we had our own reservations about a creature of statute saying, I'm calling you, but in terms of no rules, just come. Because we were anticipating an impasse like this. Now, of course, my learned friend has stood up now when we were called in terms of no rules to invoke rules. To invoke rules. Well, let me start with the letter yesterday. I didn't know that you were not appraised. You will appreciate this, Chair. This commission and its evidence leaders, you are the custodians of the proceedings, of what can happen. So we did the reasonable thing yesterday. I had a call with Mr. Pretorius, but I won't talk about the call. And I said to him, we're going to give you a letter. And the letter, I would like to read these letters, as tedious as this is going to be, because it's important for us to know that a crisis has been created here because of not really knowing what rules the evidence leaders are following or what the commission is following. We wrote to the legal team, and we said to them, as directed by the chairperson, we have indeed considered our client's position in respect of his engagement with and participation in the further proceedings of the commission. We therefore address this letter to you to record our client's position, which is informed by his own experience of the commission, having presented himself at the commission's invitation, which was described by the commission as a courtesy. Our client's misgivings about how the commission approached him are recorded in the correspondence exchange between the commission and ourselves. Despite the reservations set out in our correspondence, our client, out of respect for the citizens of this country and the commission, felt it was necessary to honor the invitation.
We cannot enter into any arrangement to favor, and this is what is being asked for. Mr. Zuma and his legal team are in effect asking to be excused from the application of the rules. And Rule 3.2 here is significant. It is not only incumbent upon us to ask questions to assist you to establish the truthfulness of any evidence, it's part of the mandate we have the power to do so, and we have the duty to do so, and we cannot derogate from that in any private arrangement to soften what happens here. And if the questions are detailed, and if the questions are difficult, and if the questions involve trying to remember events some time ago, so be it. Not one of the questions that we have asked have gone beyond the terms of reference, have gone beyond the bounds of the limits placed in the correspondence, the invitation and acceptance, and have gone beyond what is enjoined upon us in terms of the rules. Chair, I want to say just something about the so-called promise or undertaking not to cross-examine. But before I get there, I must just highlight something that appears from the correspondence. The premise of the letter, which I can now refer to because the confidentiality has been lifted, the premise is that, and I refer to paragraph 6, on the second day, our client, that is the former president personally, and through our counsel, raised several objections to the manner in which he was invited and treated. In fact, his reservations were fortified when he was subjected to relentless cross-examination. Not sure I understand what that term means. It's not specified. No particular question is referred to, nor any particular line of questioning. It goes on to say this was despite the undertaking that he would not be cross-examined. We hold a strong view that it is the Commission that must assure our client that it is still capable of curing what we view as serious procedural difficulties. The premise, then, of the complaint raised is firstly that there's been a breach of the rules, procedural deficiencies. Now, it is not up to a party, ex parte, to determine that there has been a breach of rules and then see that as a final determination of the issues at stake. The rules are always subject to your decision, Chair, and then the decision of the court.
I am saying I'm the chairperson of the commission. Although I don't get to do everything, and there are different sections of the commission, different people who do different things. When it comes to the appearance of the former president before the commission, I made the decision. And if that decision is to be criticized, it's my decision, and people can criticize me for it. It is fine.
Enter Justice Raymond Zondo to unlock the impasse once again, even though it leaves a question mark of if and when exactly former President Zuma will return to the stand.
The discussions have resulted in an agreement that one, the decision that the former president would no longer participate in the proceedings is withdrawn, and that the former president, I've been told, has indicated that he wishes to continue to cooperate with this commission. And his legal team also wish to continue to work with this commission. It has been agreed that the way in which the former president's concerns may be taken care of is that the Commission's legal team will indicate to his legal team what the Commission's areas of interest are in each witness's statement or affidavit on which the Commission or they would like the former president to testify, and that thereafter the former president would then provide through his legal team statements that indicate what he has to say on the incidents or areas of interest that will have been pointed out by the Commission's legal team in regard to each witness's statement or affidavit. This helps because sometimes in one statement, a witness deals with a number of things, some of which may have nothing to do with the former president, but there may be areas where the Commission's legal team wishes to hear what he knows or what he has to say. The agreement is that counsel, certainly the lead counsel, but counsel for the former president will meet within the next, before the end of the next 2 weeks, with a view to the Commission's legal team making available to the former president's counsel a document that indicates exactly which areas in the various affidavits of witnesses they would like the former president to give information about. The two teams, counsel, will agree the time frames, the time frame within which the former president's counsel will provide the former president's statements in regard to the specific areas of interest that will have been indicated in regard to the specific affidavits of the witnesses concerned. If the two sides are not able to agree on the time frame, they will approach me, and I will hear both sides and make a decision on the time frame. It is contemplated within this agreement that at a certain stage, the former president will come back
It was stop-start, that's for sure. But when Zuma's testimony on the actual allegations did get going, there were a few interesting revelations.
At times, the reporting in our country is not fair. So, they were happy as well. So I said, man, so that you know I'm not just talking. One day I would be happy if you could see them and hear how they're thinking of it. They've been thinking about it. So the two comrades and myself listened to them at one time when they wanted to say how they want to go about this thing. So I agreed. When they were about when they were moving forward, they then said, can you help? Asking me, give us a name. You don't know how to call this newspaper. So I said to them, there used to be struggle publications we used to have called Spark, Fighting Talk, New Age, etc. So I gave all these names. They loved this name, New Age. And that's how the paper was named. So they established a newspaper and started working. We're very happy. They even discussed that they are going to report about provinces in this paper, so that there's no province that is not reported to. As always, they are not in the national newspapers, except there's a big thing. Let's do something different, as I was saying. When this paper was operating and really being appreciated in the country, to bring about an alternative voice, I then said, man, the newspaper, fine, we have succeeded. I don't know, and I was thinking whether I could push them further. So I said to them, this is very successful. What about a TV channel? I suggested the paper, to them I suggested the channel. Somebody can then say we're abusing this friendship. It was never the other way around. It's me who put them into trouble. Because I said, your paper is so successful. I'm sure your TV thing can be successful. And they agreed, they said it's a good idea. And they moved on it. I know that people who had problems had a lot to say about this. I thought it was a very good thing that they did. There was no law broken there.
Then, also on page 3 at paragraph 10, Mr. Maseko says that around September, October 2010, I received a call from Mr. A.J. Gupta on my mobile number, 0836450810, requesting a meeting to discuss what he said was a new project which he and his company were launching, which he indicated required government support. He says over the page that he knew Mr. A.J. Gupta, but that he was reluctant to accede to the request. He finally decided to accede to the request. Now, may I ask, did you have anything to do with arranging for Mr. Gupta to speak to Mr. Maseko?
No, I didn't.
In any event, a meeting took place. And on the date of the meeting, and that was during 2010, during September, October 2010, he says he received a call from the President's official residence. He says in paragraph 15 at the bottom of page 4, I identified the incoming number as I had had dealings with the residents previously. A female caller said the President wanted to speak to me. And then on page 5, paragraph 16, Mr. Maseko refers to the content of the call. Would you take a moment to read that, please?
Yes.
May I request, Mr. Zuma, he reads font 18. Can I suggest that you read it if it's not too much for you?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Maybe I should ask you to read it. My accent not being what it should.
Okay, let me read paragraph 16 of Mr. Masego's affidavit at page 5. He says, the call was then transferred to the president. After the pleasantries, the president then said the following, and he quotes, Mfoka baba, kunala madoda akwaGupta. Ngifuna ukuthi uhlangane nabo futhi ubancede. Close quotes. The English translation is, that is Mr. Masego continuing, open brackets, my brother, there are these Gupta guys who need to meet with you and who need your help. Please help them. That is paragraph 16. Your question then, Mr. Pretorius?
Well, that is the version of Mr. Maseko, and it's an opportunity for you, Mr. Zuma, to respond to that. I can ask you individual questions, or you can respond in general, however is more convenient. Perhaps I should ask, do you recall that happening?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't remember, because I normally called the DGs, and particularly this one, to discuss a number of issues. I can't remember making this call. Also, in the Zulu word, I usually say mfanagit.
Yes.
I'm not fond of mfoka baba.
Yes.
It looks like somebody was trying to remember my common one in Zulu, because I
Yes.
always say mfanagit.
Yes.
I wouldn't know, but the issue of this new paper, of the owners wanting to talk to the departments, but more importantly, the department of Masego, it was a center point in terms of advertisement, whatever, or the other departments. So it is natural. They would want to talk to him. So I don't think there was anything out of the ordinary, whether there was a call or no call. But I don't remember making the call saying, Mfoka baba. Because I made a number of calls, and really I can't say this one I remember making it for that day to say this must happen.
Is the position that you say it might have happened, but you
It
can't
might have
recall?
happened, yeah,
It might have happened, but you can't recall.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Maseko, his evidence is that an improper approach was made to him to ensure that the full budget of the various departments for government advertising was allocated in favor of the New Age newspaper. That's his evidence. And what he at least seeks to conclude from his statement is that at the very least he was punished for not cooperating as he was requested to do by Mr. A.J. Gupta. And in quoting the Minister Chabani as he does in his statement, he attributes the decision to dismiss or transfer, whatever that decision was, to yourself. Do you have any comment on that?
No. I was not the cause of his being shifted. No.
If we may move on
And
then
maybe
to-
before that, and is it something you have quite a clear recollection of that you didn't cause him to be shifted. It would have been a request from his minister.
Yes.
Okay.
The evidence of Faiki Mentor, her claims that the Guptas had offered her a cabinet position in exchange for an undertaking that she would cancel SAA's Johannesburg to Mumbai route, took center stage. As well as Themba Maseko's claims that Zuma asked him to meet with and help the Guptas. Zuma's opening statement delivered on Monday lit a flame in an already highly charged environment. The week ended with battle lines drawn between those who believe Zuma and those who believe there is a fight-back campaign aimed at derailing the Ramaphosa administration's anti-state capture drive.
We can't have all our leaders, after leaving office, they must be persecuted. Ubaba Msholozi is almost 8 years. He's supposed to be resting with his family. He must be running courts from the same democratic government. And we are not saying that anyone is above the law, but we are saying him too deserves the respect like all the leaders of the African National Congress. He can't be disrespected and be sent from pillar to post in terms of courts, and we are sitting back as membership of the ANC, who are saying nothing. We stand here, Msholozi, with you. We are fearless. We fear nobody. We are not going to leave the African National Congress. Amandla! Away, two! Qina Msholozi, qina! Qina Msholozi, qina! Sikhokhele kahle Ramaphosa, sikhokhele kahle! Amandla!
Next up, the Commission is on Monday set to hear evidence around the controversial Estina Dairy Farm project.